This week, I examined more than 1,000 pages in the most recent Epstein files released by the United States Oversight Committee. So of course, I read and saw a lot of really disturbing information. But out of all of the creepy things that I came across in those documents, this set of photos might be one of the more disturbing things that I've found in there so far. For many years, we've heard rumors about underground tunnels, secret rooms, and disturbing artwork on Epstein Island. But there's something very particular about the photos in question here that stopped me and a lot of the internet in its tracks. These images depict a fully functional dental suite inside Epstein's private villa on Little St. James Island. It's not weird at all that a billionaire would employ his own private dentist, but it's what's inside the room and what's hanging on the walls that raises every single hair on the back of my neck, and it also raises some disturbing questions. Surrounding what would have been an otherwise pretty ordinary dental chair in the middle of a room are 12 molded face masks of real men with the eye holes cut out. All 12 of these masks share the same exact orangey yellow hue as the upholstery on that dental chair. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's just something about matching human faces to the exact shade of vinyl on a piece of medical equipment that is giving uncanny valley vibes. The more I study these pictures, the more apparent it becomes to me that this room was meant to blur the lines between the person in the chair and the masks on the wall. And that sends a super chilling message that nothing and no one is ever what it seems. During the course of my research about this dentist room, I waded through countless clinical reports and psychological profiles. I really wanted to know who sat in that chair and what was being done to them when the door was closed. And part of me still wants the answer to something even more disturbing. Who were the people wearing these terrifying masks? Some of the stuff in here is truly what nightmares are made of. So if you think you can stomach some of the more disturbing facts and theories that I've uncovered this week, let's dig into this even deeper, because I promise you it's just getting started. Psychologists who study high-control environments suggest that this room could have been a tool used for disorientation. And there's this other concept called coercion architecture, which really fits into this scenario pretty well. If you wanted to make someone feel completely powerless, you could, for example, put them in a reclining medical chair. Maybe you have someone or multiple people wearing those masks doing God knows what to the person in that chair completely against their will. A lot of people working in the dental field in some capacity have noted that this looks like a real functional dental chair sitting in the middle of this room. But what people can't seem to agree on is the size of this chair and if it was actually meant for pediatric patients or if it's actually a standard size dental chair. Either way, I think we can all agree collectively that this is 20 different kinds of unsettling. I actually tried to imagine myself laying in that room on that chair surrounded by all of these super creepy masks on the wall, and I have to say I absolutely hated that. Makes me more than a little nauseous. I can only imagine that being in that scenario in real life creates a sort of panopticon effect. That feeling of being watched by a crowd while being physically restrained and maybe even under the influence of prescription drugs is something straight out of a horror movie. Another thing people have noted about these photos is that there is an ultrasonic bath and autoclave for sterilizing instruments, as well as an ultraviolet light. I spent the majority of my adult life working in healthcare and the medical industry, not dentistry specifically, but in the healthcare sector. So I know from experience that this type of medical equipment is not cheap. Having thousands and thousands of dollars of legit medical equipment almost makes this operation look a little bit more legit. But on the other hand, Epstein is the exact type of person who I would expect to drop $10,000 to $20,000 for plausible deniability. Years and years ago, Woody Allen sent an email to Epstein and referred to this exact place as Castle Dracula. Call me crazy, but it seems pretty darn clear that number one, Woody Allen has been here, and number two, he fully understood whatever disgusting power control medical fantasy thing that was probably taking place inside this room. I mean, it's no secret that Woody Allen has long been known to be a pedophile way before any of the Epstein files were released, but this has definitely solidified his place in the sleazebag department, for me anyway. Let's get into the scariest part of all of this, the wall of human-like masks. Some researchers have suggested that these are composite faces, sculpted to look like a specific world leader from one angle and a historical figure from another. And this is where celebrity names in the files start to take on a more physical form. Let me preface this by saying that we already know from depositions that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell would often use code names for their more high-profile guests. So I did some deeper digging into who these masks could actually be. The general consensus about these first two masks is that they depict two men named Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. At first I had zero clue who either of these guys were, and if you don't either, no worries. Apparently they were one of the more famous comedy duos from way back in 1920, way before our time. Now what's chilling about that is, according to insiders, Epstein used to refer to the former Prince Andrew and President Bill Clinton as Laurel and Hardy in private. The next mask that we see here appears to be Humphrey Bogart, this legendary Hollywood tough guy from Casablanca. We recently learned in the unsealed files from December of 2025 that Epstein reportedly used the name Bogart when referring to his buddy Larry Summers. Larry Summers is a lot of things. He was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton, and he's also the former president of Harvard, for a lot of good reasons. I found an email he sent in 2019, literally months before Jeffrey Epstein's final arrest. And in this email, Larry Summers asked Epstein for advice on how to pursue a sexual relationship with a woman that he described as his own mentee. Epstein responded to Summers by telling him that the woman was smart and was making him pay for past errors. But the unfun facts don't stop there. A lot of people seem to think that the mask in this next photo looks very similar to Charles de Gaulle, who was a legendary French general. De Gaulle was the nickname Epstein used to use for one of his closest associates, Jean-Luc Brunel. Brunel was a French model scout, and to put it lightly, a complete and total sleazebag. He had a decades-long history with both Epstein and Maxwell and was accused of supplying over 1,000 women to their trafficking network. After Epstein died in 2019, Brunel went into hiding, but he was eventually caught and charged with multiple rapes of minors. In 2022, he was found hanging in his French prison cell while he was awaiting trial. Sound familiar? Some of the other faces in this room are dead ringers for Stalin and Vladimir Lenin, just the casual architects of the Soviet Union. Now, why would a guy like Epstein want the founders of the ultimate surveillance state watching over his dental chair? Probably because Epstein had a very long obsession with total power and absolute control. He also had a long, complicated history with several people who, to put it bluntly, get off on authoritarianism and that deep surveillance. He didn't just study these men, he mirrored their exact tactics. I have to give you a quick warning here because this is where the research and a lot of the theories start to get really dark really fast. Some psychologists and trauma-informed experts have suggested that this room wasn't for dentistry at all, but used more like a tool for trauma-inducing fear. Let's think about that. The dental office is already one of the most common fears and phobias probably in the entire world. If that hypothetical situation were to actually be true, simply by turning that type of clinical space into a psychological theater complete with 12 unblinking masks, it would absolutely strip a person's sense of control in a place where they already feel incredibly vulnerable. You essentially create a torture chamber designed specifically to induce total compliance. Another theory that some people have suggested about this room is that there was a cleaner, more forensic purpose to it. The theory is that this was a place for removing or changing someone's dental records. Hypothetically, if you were to extract someone's teeth or change their bite pattern, it would make it a lot more difficult to identify a body on that island. True dental records make it a lot easier for someone to be identified. The next theory I kept seeing is something straight out of Squid Game. We know Epstein was interested in a lot of really weird shit like bio-tracking, transhumanism. He also wanted to freeze his own head and penis when he died, and he had this borderline obsession with surveillance. That has some people speculating that this dental suite could have been used to insert dental tracking devices into someone's teeth. Another super messed up angle that I was forced to look into is the Clockwork Orange theory. If you read the book or watched the movies, which I certainly did not, you probably remember a scene where this guy is strapped into a chair with his eyes pinned open and forced to watch re-education films. I really don't want to go into that description anymore, but that is the theory people are suggesting here. I don't subscribe to the Clockwork Orange theory in itself, but the moment I saw this book cover, I immediately thought about this painting found on one of Epstein's properties. Not sure why, but it stuck with me. I'm going to be super honest right now. The types of people who associated with Epstein and aligned themselves with him are some of the most twisted, disturbed, disgusting, vile people on the entire planet. So no, I don't really think that any of these theories are truly off the table, but at this point, it's more broad speculation until more evidence is released or victims confirm more details of what happened there. I would bet all of your mama's money that the information being released to the public barely scratches the surface of the true evil nature of the people in there. Now that we heard some of the crazier conspiracies and theories about the dental room, I want to see if there's actually a legitimate or logical explanation to this terrifying setup. Let's imagine for a second that this private dental office was used strictly for that. Totally professional care and oral hygiene. It might actually be that simple. As it turns out, Epstein's last known girlfriend, Karina Sholyak, was reported to be a licensed dentist and was even linked to a dental practice listed under Epstein's business address in the Virgin Islands. But here's the thing about that. Investigators found zero record of a licensed dentist ever practicing on Epstein's private island, meaning there was no record of medical permits, biohazard waste disposal, or any of that good stuff. So if there was medical care actually taking place in that room, it was completely off-grid. But there's a much ickier side to this whole Karina thing. Karina and Jeffrey had a very long 9-year relationship that began way back in 2010, almost immediately after he was released from jail in Florida for soliciting sex from literal children. I did the math, and Karina would have been around 21 years old at that time. Her convicted pedophile boyfriend was 57. I mean, she wasn't technically a minor, so maybe according to their twisted calculations, this was actually a plus. Another weird thing I found out about Karina is that despite her long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, she was reportedly involved in a sham marriage to another person at the same time. In 2013, Karina married a woman named Jennifer Kalin, who also happens to be another Epstein victim turned associate. Allegedly, this marriage was strictly for visa purposes, because Karina is actually from the country Belarus, and marrying Jennifer gave her a pathway to stay in the United States and continue to work, live with, and date her pedophile boyfriend Jeffrey Epstein. Just 9 days after Epstein's final arrest by federal agents, Karina filed for divorce from her sham spouse, Jennifer. Epstein and Karina continued their situationship up until the literal day of his alleged death in 2019. All of this information really has me questioning if this dental room was legit, or if Karina's dental degree was just another sham to justify this off-grid clinic. We cannot say with 100% certainty that this room was there to give Epstein's dentist girlfriend a home office, nor can we say with 100% certainty that it was some sort of sick psychological laboratory for victims. But what I can say with 100% certainty is that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted pedophile who practically oozed with bad intention everywhere he went. And this room gives me absolutely zero good vibes. But I'm curious what you think. Was this room actually meant for simple dentistry? And if that were the case, why would any decent person want to surround medical equipment with a dozen hollow-eyed faces? I will be continuing to dig into other parts of the more recent Epstein files. So if you want to stay in the loop on everything else that they're hiding in there, make sure you are subscribed. I have this strange feeling that things are about to get a whole lot weirder.